Welcome back to the Deep Dive, everybody. Today we're diving into a tough one, something a lot of folks might be facing or will face down the road.
Definitely.
We're talking about how to help someone with dementia accept help, using some insights from a pretty great guide we found. And, sometimes you read these things and there's one point that just kind of makes you go, whoa, didn't think about it like that.
hmm
In this case, that was this idea of anosognosia.
Anosognosia.
Yeah. It basically explains why it can be so tough to get through to someone with dementia.
Yeah, anosognosia. It's wild, really. It's this thing where a person with dementia, their brain literally can't recognize that they're having problems.
They don't realize their abilities aren't what they used to be.
Right, like their brain's just not processing it. They might be struggling with everyday stuff, but they're not being stubborn. They honestly believe they're doing just fine.
Wow. So, imagine trying to convince someone to take a medication when they're absolutely certain they're not even sick.
Exactly. And that's why, trying to argue or convince them, well, it backfires more often than not. You just end up stressing everyone out.
And probably damaging the relationship,
But
too.
absolutely.
So, what can we do instead? The guide seems to emphasize the importance of, understanding the person's perspective.
Right. Meeting them where they're at, so to speak. It's about shifting the focus from fixing them to understanding their goals, their desires, what matters most to them.
That's tough, though, right? How do you put that into practice?
It's about putting ourselves in their shoes, really trying to see the world through their eyes.
So, instead of saying, hey, you can't cook anymore, let me do it, it's more about,
It's more about figuring out what they still enjoy about cooking, what needs they're trying to fulfill.
Mm.
Maybe it's the feeling of being helpful, of providing for their family.
yeah, I see. Maybe they can help with meal planning or choosing recipes.
Exactly. Or maybe they can simply sit in the kitchen and chat while you cook, still feeling involved in the process.
Okay, so that's kind of a general approach, but the guide also dives into some specific challenges like finances.
Right. Managing money it can become a big issue when someone has dementia.
Yeah, not just forgetting to pay bills, but also becoming vulnerable to scams, right?
Sadly, yes. They might not recognize red flags anymore, or they might trust the wrong people.
So what can we do? I mean, we can't just let them handle their finances if it's not safe.
The guide has some really good suggestions. For example, setting up automatic bill pay.
Oh, that's smart. Takes the pressure off of remembering due dates.
Right. And it also gives them a sense of control, knowing their bills are being taken care of. Another idea is intercepting mail to prevent scams.
Like having their mail delivered to a trusted family member.
Exactly. That way you can screen for anything suspicious before it even gets to them. Same goes for phone calls, really.
Just kind of filter out anything that sounds fishy.
Pretty much, yeah. And if they do get scam calls, being prepared to intervene, maybe even changing their phone number if it gets too bad.
This all sounds, it sounds pretty tricky. Is there one magic solution that works for everyone?
Unfortunately, no. That's the thing about dementia. Every situation is unique.
So each case kind of requires its own custom solution.
Yeah. And that's where the guide really emphasizes the importance of creative thinking. It's about being flexible, thinking outside the box, and, not being afraid to try different things.
So instead of forcing a square peg in a round hole, it's more like we're trying to build a custom puzzle piece.
That's a great way to put it. And honestly, sometimes the solutions are surprisingly simple. I remember working with a family where the dad, he was really fixated on driving.
Maybe that wasn't safe anymore.
Yeah, and arguing wasn't working. It was just upsetting him. So they came up with this idea. They got him an old steering wheel, mounted it on a base, and put it in his living room.
Oh, wow. So he could kind of pretend to drive.
Exactly. And it worked wonders. He was content. He felt like he was still in control, and everyone felt safer.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It just shows that a little bit of creativity can go a long way.
Absolutely. And, another important point is that nobody has to go through this alone. There are so many resources available, support groups, organizations specializing in dementia care.
It's always good to remember that. Don't be afraid to reach out for help.
Exactly.
Well, this has been incredibly insightful. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us.
My pleasure.
And to our listeners, we hope this deep dive has given you some food for thought, some new ideas for approaching these challenging situations. Remember, a little understanding, a lot of empathy, and a dash of creativity can make all the difference. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.